A first in Philippine television history, the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines standing shoulder to shoulder with the three major service commanders, the Army Commanding General, the Navy Flag Officer in Command, and the Acting Air Force Commanding General for an in-depth conversation with me here in the Armed Forces Headquarters in Quezon City, Camp General Emilio Aguinaldo. This is a one-on-four CNN Philippines special presentation, The Generals. I'm Pia Ontiveros.
Land, sea, and air. Patag, dagat, at langit. For the longest time, the Filipino soldier was always our military's best weapon and best-kept secret. But he needs the hardware to back him up in the field, on territorial waters, and in our airspace. So that the country is respected, not just in this region, but in the world. From internal security operations to external defense.
Sabi nga sa pambansang awit natin sa manlulupig, di ka pa sisilid.
What any armed forces worth its salt is doing anywhere else in the globe. The Armed Forces Modernization program has gone by leaps and bounds, but it has also seen a number of missteps and setbacks. But as soldiers always do, they just keep marching on. Loyal to flag and country, constitution and democracy, so that when bells for them are rung and their last taps is sung, generations will see our country free.
Welcome to the show, General Jose Faustino Jr., the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Andres Centino, Army Commanding General, Vice Admiral Edeluis Bordado, the Navy Flag Officer in Command, and Major General Arthur Cordura, Air Force Acting Commanding General. And there is a fifth guest on the show, the static displays behind us, the latest military hardware in the arsenal of the armed forces, which we will show up close to you, our viewers, a little later on in this show. In the meantime, let's begin with this, General Faustino. Let's talk about the move from internal security operations to external or territorial defense. The armed forces, of course, moving from ISO to external defense. Why must this get done? And is this because the threats are changing and soon they will no longer be unconventional threats?
Yes, you're right, Pia. The threats are really changing, especially now that we have gained so much in our counter-insurgency campaign. And with the LCAC in full motion, that we are now able to address our internal security problems. And with that, for almost 5 decades now, we have really progressed in our campaign, and it's now time for us to really look into what's happening in our external territories. And as it is right now, we have a lot of changes when it comes to the threats that we are confronting with in the West Philippine Sea particularly. That's why we really have to address our external defense, and with that we really have to go into modernization.
But General Faustino, let's break down yung ISO even further. Let's talk about the battle versus communist guerrillas and local terrorists. First, the New People's Army. You say that they're decimated. Are they really, and what led to that? You mentioned the LCAC already, so the NTF LCAC, no? This whole of government approach, ito ba yung sinasabi ninyo that is responsible for this?
Yeah.
Although it has come under a lot of criticism also.
Yeah. Ngayon, Pia, dahil nga sa nakakita tayo ng naging game changer kasi yung yung LCAC. Sinabi mo maraming bumabatikos, pero sa totoo lang ito ay naging game changer itong EO70, yung National Task Force LCAC. And with that, it became like a whole of government at the start, that it became a whole of nation approach ang nangyari. So lahat ng agencies, lahat ng local chief executives, lahat ng local government units at ang private sector ay aboard doon sa ating whole of nation approach. And ito yung talagang nakatulong para pabagsakin yung insurgency.
General Andy Centino, CGPA, just recently an NPA leader, George Madlos Caores, killed in Bukidnon. You say this was an encounter. The other side says otherwise. How significant is he in the NPA High Command? And
yeah, for several years, Pia, the armed forces of the Philippines, in the area of Mindanao, we have the Eastern Mindanao Command and we have the 4th Infantry Division operating in the areas of Bukidnon, Agusan Sur, and Surigao provinces. And this used to be the area where George Madlos or Caores used to command several NPA units. And last October 30 of October of 30th in the area of Pasugong, Bukidnon, the forces of the 403rd Brigade under the 4th Infantry Division encountered several elements of the NPAs in the area, and after an hour-long encounter, 2 bodies were found, and they realized it was George Madlos. The death of Caores is very significant, considering that he's been the head of the Commission Mindanao for so long a time. He has been the spokesperson, and he has also been a member of the National Operations Command of the CPP-NPA.
para siyang chief of staff?
Yes, napakalaking position, and he has directed practically lahat ng mga atrocities committed by the NPAs in Caraga and Northern Mindanao. And I'm sure that with the death of Caores, we will see a significant beginning, perhaps, of the collapse of the communist terrorist group in that area.
You say it was an encounter. Of course, they say it was an ambush, but you are saying it was an encounter.
Yes, that's as reported by our ground forces. That happened on around 11:30 in the morning of October 30.
Let's talk about terrorism, local terrorism. General Faustino, we had a scare a few weeks ago. There was this report that there could be some activity on that front. Is that credible information? Is that something that we should worry about?
Yeah, Pia, if we were able to gain some victories against the NPA, it's the same with the LTGs, with the local terrorist groups. Totoo yun, Pia, na merong report kami natanggap, but when we verified it, of course we have to address yung sa local terrorist groups na Central Mindanao, yung sa Sulu and Basilan. But sa ating pakikipag-ugnayan sa ating mga assets, sa ating mga intelligence community, walang nagsasabi ng ganoon na threat, Pia.
General Centino, just recently a Daula Islamia leader was killed. So you had the Caores and then now itong si Salahuddin Hassan in Maguindanao. Is this also very significant for you?
Yeah, very significant is the neutralization of Salahuddin Hassan. He used to be the head of the Al-Kubar group operating in Central Mindanao. He was a student of, or a protege of the late Malaysian terrorist Marwan. And that Hassan, his group was responsible for the series of bombings in Central Mindanao, in Cotabato, even in Davao, and public market bombing in Davao last 2016. And we suppose that his neutralization would, again, also, just like what happened in Bukidnon, I think I would like to believe that his neutralization would signal the end of terrorist activities in central Mindanao.
So like I said earlier, you are moving from internal security operations to territorial defense, which should be the Armed Forces' mandate. So General Faustino, tell us how the Armed Forces is retooling and reorienting itself.
Yes, sa ngayon, Pia, tuloy-tuloy yung ating nasa second horizon na tayo ng ating modernization program. Na ating unang modernization program, umabot yun sa around 52 billion pesos which ended 2012. In 2013, ito na yung ating bagong modernization program na nahati sa tatlong horizons, Horizon 1, Horizon 2, and Horizon 3. Right now, we're in Horizon 2. Sa Horizon 1 pa lang, ito ay nagkakahalaga ng almost 96 billion. Then, sa Horizon 2, it's almost 500 billion. So, dito makikita mo yung paggulong ng ating modernization program. Kasama dito sa mga naka-display natin dito sa likod, itong mga na-acquire na natin. At meron pa tayong mga priorities like ang ating C4I Star projects, ang ating missile systems, yung ating submarines ng Navy and mga sasakyang pandagat at ang ating multi-role fighters ng Philippine Air Force.
We're going to take a very, very quick break. This is a CNN Philippines 1-on-4 special presentation. The generals will be right back. Welcome back to this CNN Philippines special presentation of 1-on-4 with General Boy Faustino, Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the three major service commanders. I'm Pia Ontiveros. This is the generals. We'll talk to the generals still. Let's begin with Art Cordura, the Acting Commanding General of the Philippine Air Force. General Cordura, tell us about how the Air Force is the first line of defense for the country.
Actually, the Philippine Air Force as the first line of defense is consistent with the doctrine of air power. Ang sinasabi po sa doktrina ng air power is that the Air Force, when we project force, you have the ability to conduct that with reach, speed, and lethality. So, in line with that, we have, in terms of territorial defense operations, the Air Force has 6 core systems which it developed, and one of them is the Integrated Air Defense System. So that is operationalized to have the ability to detect, identify, intercept, and neutralize intrusions in our airspace. So we procure and develop our modernization program so that we can procure the appropriate sensors, systems, and shooters so that we can attain this ability as first responder to any intrusions in our airspace.
First responder or first line of defense meaning hindi dapat makalampas sa inyo. In other words, diba? Okay, the Navy, Flag Officer in Command, Adel Bordado, tell us why you are the second line of defense.
We are the second line of defense kasi sabi nga, habang malayo pa ang kalaban ay dapat mahinto na natin siya. So, the Air Force, they have the airplanes and of course they have the long-range maritime patrols. So ibabato niya ngayon yung mga products ng surveillance and reconnaissance sa Navy. So at present, mayroon tayong 2 frigates, the BRP Jose Rizal and BRP Antonio Luna. And of course, we have also on board on the ships, yung i-explain ko mamaya, yung mga ating mga anti-submarine helicopters. So they are part of those frigates. And of course, we have 2 landing decks to bring the Marines. And of course, yung ating mga, on the pipeline, ang ating submarine and 8 offshore patrol vessels and 2 corvettes na ating ipoprocure in the near future. Pero sabi mo kanina, hindi lang equipment. And of course, ang training ng ating mga mandaragat at ang mga mandirigma ay patuloy nating ini-enhance o patuloy nating hinahasa. Sabi nga, sharpening the saw ang ating mga pandaragat at mga mandirigma ng hukbong dagat ng Pilipinas.
Ang sarap talaga pakinggan because we haven't heard this in a long time. General Andy Centino for the Army, the third and last line of defense. Tell us why you are the third and last line of defense.
Yes, when the Air Force and the Navy will fail, the Army will be there.
Aray ko.
And
Huwag naman sana, di ba?
yes, and to prepare for this, the Army is organizing and equipping our units. Right now, we are procuring new equipment for the Army Artillery Regiment. We have 155 howitzers being acquired, and we also are in the process of acquiring ground-based air defense systems, ground-based anti-ship missile systems, so that we will be capable of holding our fort on land.
And these are the things you never had when you were all
Yes.
young lieutenants or an ensign, in the Navy. Of course, you had this, we were told, this military exercise in Cebu, Langit, Patag at Dagat, referring to all three branches of services. Your objective was is interoperability. But General Faustino, I wanted you to tell us about this move to external defense, why we need to modernize.
Yes. Right now, nabanggit mo kanina, Pia, we call it AJEX, dagat, langit, at lupa, dagit pa. AFP joint exercise. Kung makikita mo lahat ng kagamitan na ito sa bawat branch of service, they have their own exercises. Ganun din sa Army, may combined arms exercise. Itong joint exercise na ito is pinagsama-sama lahat ng mga assets ng Army, Air Force at ng Navy at ang ating Special Operations Forces kung paano natin siya gagamitin sa isang joint environment. So, itong dagit pa ay isang napakagandang exercise. Kung maalala mo, meron tayong mga exercise sa ating mga counterparts like with Balikatan, we have with Australia. So, ito, internal to, AFP exercise lang to, in a joint environment. So, makikita mo, ini-integrate na natin lahat ng ating weapon systems. Katulad nung binanggit nila na first line of defense, second and third lines of defense. So, ito, pinasok natin lahat sa exercise na ito sa AJEX Dagit pa.
All right, and that is why we have all of this behind us, this static display featuring the latest, the newest assets of the armed forces. And I'm going to ask the three major service commanders to join me one by one so that you, the viewers, can see all of this up close. I'm sure for many of you, this is the first time you're going to see this. So we're going to begin with the Army. General Centino, tell us about the two armored vehicles and what is mounted on them.
Yeah. Right in front of us, we are two of the armored personal carrier. We call it the M113A2. These are two of the around more than 400 vehicles that we have in the Army. And these are mounted with the mortar system. This is this one is mounted with the remote controlled weapon system. This one here, right here, is the 81 mortar.
81 millimeter mortar.
Yeah, 81 millimeter mortar. And what's good in this equipment is that we can remotely have the sights from inside the vehicle, just like this one also. We don't have to physically train our sights on the machine gun, but we can just hit our targets from inside.
Okay, and what about this, General Centino?
This one right here is the ITAS, or the Improved Target Acquisition System, and this is propelled with a TOW, or the Tube Launch Optically Tracked and Wireless Guided Missile. It's a missile system. We didn't have this in the past. This one right here can track or can see targets as far as 10 kilometers away. But this missile can hit targets as far as 4 kilometers.
And of course, when you're lieutenant, wala ito.
Yes,
1
we
kilometer.
didn't have this,
nothing.
and
You had nothing then.
yes, we basically we didn't have. We only have the recoilless rifles.
Thank you very much, General
Thank you.
Centino. Joining us now also is the Navy Flag Officer in Command, as we introduced him earlier, Vice Admiral Bordado. Vice Admiral, let's begin with the chopper at the back, the Navy's chopper, the Navy's W159 Wildcat.
This is one of our new toys, the Augusta Westland Wildcat 159 anti-submarine helicopter, or ASW helicopter.
Okay, and what can it do and why is it important in modernization?
It is a multi-role helicopter. Of course, his primary role is anti-submarine. So you can see here, attached is the torpedo for, of course, destroying submarine.
Yeah.
And of course,
How much is one of that?
I cannot tell you the price.
Okay, that's a military
This
secret.
is the secret. Then of course, it can also be attached with a missile for air targets, and of course for surface targets like ships. And
Alright.
sabi ko nga ito, multi-role. Peacetime, it can be used as a command and control helicopter, and at the same time as a sa HADR operations,
Humanitarian
humanitarian assistance and disaster and relief operations.
And of course, like we said earlier, no, ang lakas ng hukbong sandataan hindi lang yung equipment or hardware, but the men, no?
Yeah, of course, these are my Philippine Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance Group or Force Recon Group. Ito yung aking unit ng mga tinatawag kong mga mandirigma galing dagat. And of course, nandito.
So we're safe with them?
Yes, well, sila yung aking mga mandirigma, mga marino. Of course, sabi nga, yung the few, the proud, the Marines. Of course, this team is capable of special operations, counter-terrorism operations, amphibious operations, and ang pinagmamalaki nila ay yung sniping. Kung makita mo yung kanilang mga equipment, of course, itong sniper rifle na nandito.
Yeah.
And of course, diving. And
The EOD and the dive team, no? Of the
Ito naman,
Naval Special Operations Command.
Yeah, of course, sila yung mga marino, ito namang aking mga white caps. Kasi
Okay.
palagi niyong sinasabi, Navy and Marines. Actually, isa lang yan. Navy, Marines, and white caps. They are the special operations team o command ng Navy, yung galing sa SEAL team.
And as a young ensign, of course, Vice Admiral Bordado, a young ensign or lieutenant, no? Wala pa tayong ganito, right?
Wala pa.
Wala pa
Meron
malayo.
tayong force recon.
May force recon, pero wala po tayong chopper.
Wala
na
tayong
ganun,
chopper.
nothing, no?
And of course,
Yeah.
ito yung ating pinakabagong laruan rin, o mga assets ng Philippine Navy, the UAS or the Unmanned Aerial System, Scan Eagle. It can operate, it can extend our horizon to 100 kilometers,
This one.
and ang endurance niya is 15 hours.
Wow, okay.
It can conduct
15 hours in the air.
15 hours in the air.
Oh,
And of
okay.
course, can be launched at sea and inland. So, kasama ito ng barko natin. So, pagpalipad niya, ang pag-retrieval rin yung barko. So, talagang advanced itong mga weapons natin.
Buti na, oo.
It was delivered last year, September. And
Okay.
at presently, kasi matagal yung training ng mga piloto. Actually, mga piloto sila. Yung dalawang ganito.
Okay. Buti
So-
na lang nakita nyo to habang nasa serbisyo kayo.
Oo nga.
Vice Admiral Bordado. Thank you, sir.
Sige,
All right, we're going to go over to the Air Force's Black Hawk, the new Black Hawk helicopters. And with us is General Cordura, the acting commanding general of the Air Force. So, General Cordura, you know, for many viewers, this is the first time they're going to see this up close, the Black Hawk. Although there's a whole generation of us familiar with Black Hawk Down, the movie.
Yes,
My generation anyway. But, you know, we got used to seeing the UEs. I mean, I would ride them several times. So are these, the Black Hawk, are they even more dependable than the Hueys?
Yes, they are. Actually, the Black Hawk or the 70i Black Hawks is one of the latest additions in the modernization program of the Philippine Air Force. It is a twin engine. It is very durable, rugged, flexible, and it can actually be configured for different missions such as combat assault, medevac, HADR, and as a utility aircraft or helicopter, it can accommodate 11 to 18 troops, depending on the configuration of the aircraft.
Yeah, and as a young lieutenant in the Air Force, we didn't have the Black Hawk yet at the time.
Yes, we do
Huey
not
pa
have
lang.
before. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so buti na lang naabutan mo to while you were in the service,
Yes, ma'am.
right? Now, John Cordura, while we're walking back, you know, the Air Force has been quite unlucky in the last 8-10 months because we've had 4 crashes. No? The latest, the C-130 in Sulu. And, you know, syempre top of mind, the question is, why are there so many crashes just as we are modernizing?
Actually, ma'am, the Air Force has a very rich culture of promoting safety in our operations. It is but unfortunate that these 4 crashes happened, especially now that we are modernizing. It is something that we do not need. It is something that we do not really want. But we take it from there, and we try to identify the gaps and where we can move forward and correct them so that similar accidents in the future will not happen again.
We hope the same thing also. General Faustino, in spite of that, the modernization program has more hits than misses, I suppose, and more successes than failures. What is our goal here?
Well, Pia, for us is to have a credible defense. You know, modernization is budget heavy, so it needs a lot of money, of course. And right now, we encountered some problems because of the pandemic, and some of our resources were, used for the COVID-19 pandemic. And but slowly we are reaching there. You say, how credible is our credible defense? Well, if you look at the list of programs and the projects that we have lined up for modernization, that is truly for credible. We will be able to reach that target of credible defense. But as I said, modernization is dependent on budget, especially now that we're going transitioning to external defense, and the Air Force and the Navy are big ticket, are acquiring big ticket items like ships and multi-role fighters, and that requires a lot of money.
When you say credible defense, General Faustino, you talk about domination, right?
Right.
And I mean, in very simple words, is it, para hindi tayo kakayan-kayanin? Ganun
Yeah.
ba? So we are respected?
Yes, that's right. In as much as we wanted to settle things peacefully, kasi yun naman ang ating national interest dictates us na we be diplomatic and we settle things peacefully. And what we wanted really is a rules-based international order in these contested areas in the West Philippine Sea and the South China Sea. Ang sa atin lang naman is we have a credible defense na sabi nga sa pambansang awit natin
Never shall.
sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil.
Never
yun
shall
yung-
invaders trample our sacred shores.
Sa manlulupig, di ka pasisiil. So we have to do that. Yeah.
And at that point, we're going to take a very quick break. Just as General Faustino said, sa manlulupig, hindi ka pasisiil. This is a 1-on-4 CNN Philippine special presentation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the CNN Philippines special presentation of 1-on-4 with General Boy Faustino, Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the three major service commanders. I'm Pia Ontiveros. We are here in Camp Aguinaldo, the headquarters of the Armed Forces. We're going to speak now still to the major service commanders, Vice Admiral Adel Bordado of the Flag Officer in Command of the Navy. Since pinag-uusapan ng West Philippine Sea, what we've seen in the last few months is the Philippines only sending in the white ships. We're told they're white ships, meaning Coast Guard, for example. Tell us why we cannot send in our gray ships, the Navy. Are we trying to avoid a repeat of an incident during the Aquino administration where a Navy ship intercepted a Chinese ship and the captain boarded the Chinese ship?
Actually, the West Philippines issue or West Philippine Sea issue now is being handled by the West Task Force West Philippine Sea, headed by our National Security Advisor, Secretary June Hermogenes Esperon or June Esperon. And it is one of their strategy is to field a white ship because our big friends or our good friends out there is also fielding white ship. So tapat-tapatan lang.
Tapat-tapatan.
Tapat-tapatan.
Okay.
They are fielding Coast Guard, their Coast Guards. We are also fielding our Coast Guards because they said they are enforcing their maritime laws. Tayo naman, we are also enforcing our maritime laws. And at the same time, protecting our sovereignty. So ngayon, marami na tayong patrol doon with the help of the Philippine Coast Guard, also headed by our Mista, Admiral Leo Laroya, and yung BFAR, the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources. Kasi ang BFAR is also enforcing our fisheries law. So, and of course, yung PNP, Maritime Group, yung Maritime Police, nandoon na rin. So, it's a naval defense force. Sinabi nating naval defense force, hindi lang Philippine Navy, nandoon yung Coast Guard, nandoon yung PNP and the BFAR.
Ito na yung parang isang whole of nation approach
whole of
without
nation
going to war. Because if you sent in the gray ships, it's like you're declaring war, right?
Yeah.
And that's not what we want to happen. All right. General Cordura, yung Air Force naman, no, like you said, our first line of defense dapat. So when our aircraft fly over the West Philippine Sea, and we've seen this many times, no, we are routinely challenged by the Chinese military, and they ask us why are we in their airspace, no? And for us civilians, when we hear that, syempre parang it can be very bothersome, no? So my question is, we've heard and watched all of that and how your pilots respond. Why is it important to do this? For the pilots to respond or to challenge even. Why is it important for morale and for sovereignty?
Actually, yes, no, when the Air Force conducts both surveillance and reconnaissance and maritime missions in the West Philippine Sea, there are a number of times that we were really challenged, either by flare, by radio signals. But despite the absence of the required MARPAT or Maritime Patrol platform, we need to impose our presence in the West Philippine Sea. This just demonstrates the resolve of our pilots to put forth and carry on with their mandate to actually determine and give updates on the rightful agency, so that we can monitor from time to time the development of the prohibited structures in the area. So this just the many activities incorporated in our maritime missions that we conduct in the West Philippine Sea.
General Centino, kanina nga nabanggit mo, and we just wanted to repeat this because it's important. Yung Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, and of course the Task Force West Philippine Sea do all this parang hindi dumating sa punto na kailangan yung Army na ang mag-respond, right?
Yeah. As part of the joint force, the Philippine Army provides support to the other major services in terms of manpower. We have units. We make sure that these units are capable, they're ready, and we are also improving our reserve force to act as multipliers for regular forces. We see that in the event of perhaps an attack from foreign forces, we need the manpower, and we believe that the reserve forces are needed to complement our regular forces.
General Faustino, we have our traditional allies, the United States, for example. We have a mutual defense treaty with them, a visiting forces agreement that for a while was parang neither here nor there. No? But now it seems that we can rely on our allies. We can?
Yes, Pia, for the past several months, when I became the Chief of Staff, I have had a lot of engagements with our allies from the United States, from Australia, and of course the other Southeast Asian countries. And we can rely on them when it comes to when there will be a crisis in the West Philippine Sea. And that's why we have our joint exercises with them also.
Let's move on to elections. May 2022 national elections. Do you agree, General Faustino, that the only way the armed forces can be perceived as credible is to remain neutral for and during the elections? Meaning none of you, from the highest ranking general, and that would be you, General Faustino, to the lowliest soldier, sailor, airman, or marine, will do anything for or against any candidate, whether he or she is with the administration or the opposition or is an independent. Because I'm sure many of these candidates are trying to cultivate support from the armed forces.
Yes, Pia. The armed forces has always been and will always be non-partisan when it comes to elections. our mandate is to protect the people and to secure the state. And what better way to do that than, of course, have this. We also pray for this peaceful and successful elections. So we can guarantee you that the armed forces will be non-partisan when it comes to this election.
And for the three major service commanders, General Centino, Vice Admiral Bordado, and General Cordura, do you all see the professional soldier as loyal to flag and country, constitution, and democracy? And what will you do to ensure that, General Centino?
We have always been a professional organization, and we abide by that. And I suppose in the coming elections, we will again be called together with the Philippine National Police, as part of the main organization to be topped by the COMELEC to ensure that we have fair elections. And we are confident because in the past elections we have shown that we are capable of ensuring that indeed we can have peaceful and orderly elections.
And very quickly, Vice Admiral Bordado and General Cordura, your positions.
The Navy, the sailors, and the Marines are professional soldiers. And of course, we want always a peaceful and honest election. So in tandem with the police, your Navy will ensure that this coming 2022 election will be a peaceful and an honest one.
General Cordura?
For the Philippine Air Force, our leadership subscribes to the professionalism of our airmen and airwomen. So, but we do believe that there is a need to reinforce this among our personnel through constant dissemination of information, and so that later they will know their position when in this political exercise, and they'll be on the right track in terms of identifying themselves with the organization.
We're going to take a final break. This is a CNN Philippines special presentation, a 1-on-4 with General Faustino, Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the three major service commanders. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this CNN Philippines special presentation, a 1-on-4 with the Chief of Staff, AFP, and the three major service commanders. I am Pia Ontiveros. Final questions, very quickly lang about the earlier nabanggit niyo na po, General Faustino, na medyo na-divert ang attention and efforts, energy resources ng AFP dahil nga because of the pandemic. You also have been helping in the vaccination drive and deploying doctors and nurses, right?
Yes, Pia. We have deployed, during the early stages ng pandemic, we sent our doctors to Davao, to Cebu. Now, nung medyo nag-hit tayo nag-peak na konti a few months back, we organized teams and we sent them to major hospitals sa Metro Manila.
All right. Let's go now quickly to retirement. Dahil in about a week and a half from now, General Faustino, you are retiring at the age of 56, mandatory retirement age for all officers, generals. On a scale of 1 to 10, how sentimental are you about retirement?
Well, can't wait.
You can't wait.
Of course, Pia, I will miss the service. I've been in the service for more than 36 years. And, the camaraderie, and probably the pressure and the stress, you're gonna miss that. But I think we have to give chance to the younger generation also.
Mm-hmm. Matagal-tagal pa si Art Cordura, right? Sa serbisyo kasi class 1990, kasi class 88 itong tatlo eh. Kaya nga mista ang sabi ni Vice Admiral Bordado. Pero Adele, ikaw next September ka na. And then one of the youngest in the PMA Maringal class of 1988, si General Andy Centino, February 2023 pang retirement. Since pinag-uusapan ng retirement, pag-usapan naman natin yung next Chief of Staff, General Faustino. So you retire November 13. When you
November
12, sorry. November 12.
Yes.
Okay. So ang change of command dapat the day before or that day? November 11.
During the last change of command kay General Sabayana, it was during that day ng birthday niya. So it might be on the 12th or maybe the 11th.
Okay,
No
November
schedule
12.
yet as of now.
Unless otherwise extended by the Commander-in-Chief.
Yes.
There's a possibility?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I cannot answer that, Pia.
All right, we've come to the portion where we want to give you the chance to say your final words, a message, not just for the men and women of the armed forces and in your own individual service commands, but also for the viewers and people who are listening. So let's begin with Air Force Acting Commanding General, Major General Art Cordura.
Yes, ma'am. For the Philippine Air Force, I'd like to, on behalf of the leadership, I'd like to express our gratitude for the opportunity to be able to share our major undertakings, as well as to be able to enlighten your audience and our stakeholders on the advocacies that the Air Force is pursuing. So rest assured, as we move towards our modernization program, hitting our Waypoint 2022 in our flight plan, and 2028 eventually, the Philippine Air Force leadership has planned well and identified what to do to make the Philippine Air Force really relevant and a very proactive major service in the armed forces of the Philippines.
Thank you, General Cordura. The Navy Flag Officer in Command, Vice Admiral Adel Bordado. Sir.
We are a maritime nation, and we should have a strong Navy. That's why your Navy is pursuing its modernization program, capacitating our personnel, and modernizing our capability. Right now, we want to be a strong and, of course, a modern and multi-capable Navy that our maritime nation can rely on. So, sabi nga, we are steady on course, full speed ahead.
Thank you very much, Vice Admiral Bordado. The Army Commanding General, Lieutenant General Andy Centino. Sir.
The Philippine Army, being the major service which is the biggest component of the armed forces of the Philippines, and the major service primarily tasked to execute the campaign of the AFP. We are intent in complying with the mandate of the President to end the local conflicts before his term ends. And that is what we're doing right now. We're ensuring that all our ground forces are capable and ready to comply with this mandate, knowing the timeline. And be assured that the Philippine Army will continue to serve with pride, serving the people and securing the land.
General Centino, thank you, sir. And the Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, General Boy Faustino.
Yes, Pia, thank you for the opportunity. And we would like to thank the Filipino people for the trust and confidence, having us the #1 organization right now with the highest trust and approval rating. And we want to pay back, and we want to guarantee that the armed forces of the Philippines that our next generation will inherit is anchored on professionalism and genuine transformation. When we say this transformation is more than the equipment. The transformation involves more on the modernization of the Filipino soldier.
Thank you very much, General Boy Faustino, Chief of Staff, Armed Forces of the Philippines. Thank you so much, gentlemen, to the four of you, for giving us your time and for welcoming us to Camp Aguinaldo. My snappy salute to the four of you and to the men and women of the Armed Forces of the Philippines. This has been a CNN Philippines special presentation, The Generals. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Thank you for joining us.